Let's start with how the gun works. Air travels up the handle and over the trigger where it splits in two. Some of the air comes out of the air cap, out of these 6 holes atomizing the paint. The rest of the air travels down through this nozzle, through the air tube, and into the cup, where it pressurizes the paint inside the cup sleeve. As air pressure builds, the sleeve is squeezed together, and the paint exits the cup through the top back into the gun. The paint then fills the nozzle and is released when the needle is pulled inwards. As the paint streams out, the air coming out of the holes in the air cap atomizes the paint into the spray pattern. When something goes wrong, it's normally caused either by not enough paint flowing out of the gun or by insufficient or improper atomization. If not enough paint is flowing out, there's either a lack of pressure in the cup or something is restricting the paint flow. If sufficient paint is coming out but the spray pattern is wrong, then the problem is with the airflow from the air cap or with the nozzle. Let's start with the paint flow problem. The first thing I would check is that the filter is clean. After that, make sure this passageway is clean and clear. Obviously, if this is not the case, the paint will not flow properly. Next, check this hole here and the same on the inside of the cup. Also make sure that the hose isn't kinked or clogged. The paint is forced out by pressure on the inner sleeve, so if pressure isn't sufficient, you won't get enough paint flow. Also, make sure that the retaining ring has a proper seal. Any air pressure that is leaking from any orifice is air pressure that otherwise could be going towards forcing the paint out. Next, check this passageway here. If this is dirty or blocked, the paint will be restricted or slowed down. The same goes with this passageway here before the nozzle. You can also check this little hole here. Paint should not be getting into this area, but if it is blocked, not enough air will be able to enter the cup and pressurize the sleeve. Another thing to check is this nut here that the needle slides into. It should be tight enough that paint doesn't leak, but not so tight that the needle cannot move. If paint is leaking, it will need to be tightened with needle nose pliers. To do this, start by unscrewing and pulling out this piece, which lets the handle fall free. Remove the needle like normal. Pull out this brass cap. Once that cap has been removed, there are small parts that can fall out of this hole, so be careful for that. Using a pair of needle nose pliers, you can now adjust this nut here. Turning it clockwise will tighten the seal around the needle, counterclockwise will loosen it. To figure out how tight it should be, insert the needle. Turn the nut until it is so tight that the needle cannot be pulled out. Then loosen the nut about 1/8 of a turn at a time until you can move the needle. The needle shouldn't slide too freely, but shouldn't be too stiff either. Once you have it right, you can reassemble the gun again. You can also check the main entry port for the air at the bottom of the gun for any blockages. Make sure the nozzle is completely clean and clear as well as discussed before. If you're still struggling with proper paint flow, you can check the sprayer. The main air filter shown here filters the air that goes into the gun and pressurizes the paint. It should be cleaned at least once a week. If it gets clogged, you can lose air pressure. The second air filter shown here is for cooling the machine. It should also be cleaned once a week. If it gets clogged, the turbine can overheat and the sprayer could break. You can also check the hose to make sure there are no kinks or air leaks. It may seem obvious, but also make sure the ball valve at the end of the hose is fully open. It's an easy thing to miss. If plenty of paint is flowing, but you cannot achieve atomization, or your spray pattern is irregular, the first thing you should do is make sure you have the gun settings correct. See the video on how to spray for that. If you think your settings are correct, but the sprayer still isn't working right, make sure the air cap is clean. As discussed before, all 6 of these little holes must be completely clear including the two little ones next to the hole in the middle. You can use a thin wire to poke those out if they get blocked. Also make sure that the two holes on the back are clean. Make sure that all the faces, front and back, are clean and smooth whenever you're spraying. One final issue I've encountered is that the needle retracts too slowly or doesn't retract at all, or air leaks out around the needle. This is normally caused by a broken spring inside the gun behind the needle. In this case, the gun will need to go in for servicing.